Today on Investigate TV Plus, behind bars, the one place a mother thought her son could finally break free from addiction, but instead,
he was clean those last months and he was doing well. And then they let him die.
Why she believes her son's life could have been saved and how she's using her loss to become a voice for others.
Then, from drained bank accounts to stolen data and canceled classes, we take an in-depth look at how school districts are staying one step ahead of hackers and increasing protections against cyber attacks.
Plus, a father's plea for help leads him to a hero.
I didn't even know his name. I didn't even know he was the mayor. He's my hero now.
How a Missouri mayor saved a 7-year-old's life during a severe asthma attack.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. Grieving families and civil rights advocates are voicing concerns about access to health care behind bars. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. Each year, there are reports of incarcerated people dying without getting the medical help they need. In South Carolina alone, the Justice Department opened 2 investigations into county jails. But our investigations have also uncovered problems at state prisons.
Reporter Meredith Anderson sat down with a mother who believes the system failed her son. And a warning, some of the video is difficult to watch, but the family wanted us to share it in hopes it can help others.
Jeremy Kelly was a prisoner long before he ever served any time. As an addict, he spent years handcuffed to drugs. Eventually, his addiction led to actual handcuffs. But at the very least, his family thought, he could finally be free when he was behind bars.
You know, he's taken care of and he can't take drugs. Right. Like, I always felt like that was the safest place for him to be.
Instead, it would become his death sentence. Jeremy could always make his family laugh.
Funny, funny, funny. They could laugh and giggle like they were 3 years old again.
The father of 2 would get clean and stay clean for a while, but one slip, and he'd often find himself arrested again. A vicious cycle familiar to anyone who loves an addict.
Edgefield EMS.
July 20th, 2021. The call came from inside Trenton Correctional, a self-proclaimed ethical facility with SCDC's finest employees.
Unresponsive patient, AEDs hooked up, chest compressions being done.
That's Jeremy, out of sight, on the floor between beds. It's where he took his last breath. For years, what led up to his death has been a mystery. Until now. Not long after Jeremy died, his mom started getting phone calls
From inmates saying, you are not hearing the whole story.
A series of failures may have cost Jeremy his life. It also cost you, the taxpayer, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We begin our timeline on 4:09 a.m. on July 20th. There's a slight glitch in this surveillance video, but you see Jeremy fall out of bed. The cameras do not record any sound, so we don't know what he says when he sits up and talks to another inmate. But 1 minute later, he slumps over. An inmate goes to get help.
It's so crazy. As many times as I watched it, every time I'm rooting for him, like, come on, boy, do it, get up, get up, get up.
Jeremy doesn't get up. Not even when corrections officer Shamir Hardin arrives. According to the video, she only spends 1 minute checking on Jeremy. 1 minute. She briefly talks with another inmate, then heads back to an office. Her room goes dark at 4:47 a.m. We can't say for sure what Officer Hardin was doing in there, but she's known for sleeping on the job. She was caught sleeping twice, suspended for it both times. First, when she admitted to falling asleep while working in medical, but most recently, she was caught again a month before Jeremy died. And back to Jeremy, who is dying on the floor. The dorm lights come on at 5:05 a.m. Officer Hardin's lights are still out. Inmates notice Jeremy isn't moving, so at 5:08, one of them tries to get her attention. She eventually opens the door. keeping her distance until another officer arrives at 5:12 a.m.
So he's coming in now, about to check. Slow moving, there's no rush.
Nobody ever got in a hurry.
Officers didn't have a medical pack for mouth to mouth, so they waited to start CPR. You can see an inmate hand the corrections officer something a couple of minutes later, and chest compressions begin. There wasn't a defibrillator or AED in Jeremy's dorm. A sergeant had to run to another area of the prison to get one. It has now been more than an hour since Jeremy fell to the floor.
He's purple and blue. They started chest compressions, and they had the AED and still unresponsive.
Jeremy Kelly was pronounced dead at 6:40 a.m. The official cause? Acute cardiac dysrhythmia, a heart event, which makes this timeline all the more heartbreaking. When seconds mattered, we found no one did anything to help Jeremy for 65 minutes. Officer Hardin later admitted there was a failure to act on her part that resulted in Kelly dying. Still, an investigation found no reason to charge Officer Samir Hardin with a crime. She was not fired, suspended, or even reprimanded. Instead, she kept working as a corrections officer. Eventually, she resigned, but only when she became the center of another investigation, this time for alleged misconduct regarding a relationship with an inmate.
I miss him so much.
And Jeremy's missed so much. His daughter's high school graduation, his son becoming a father. Jeremy was never able to be a grandfather. But his mom and sister believe he finally beat his addiction. Toxicology reports showed no drugs in Jeremy's system.
He was clean those last months, and he was doing well. And then they let him die. I mean, they just let him die. They just let him die. They just watched him lay on the floor and wouldn't do anything about it.
We did get in touch with the former corrections officer at the center of all of this. She says she does not remember the night Jeremy died because it was a long time ago, and that she would not be talking to us about it. Jeremy's family sued the Department of Corrections and settled for more than $500,000, almost the max allowed. In Trenton, South Carolina, I'm Meredith Anderson.
Still to come, trading paradise for the desert.
I told him 5 years max, I'm moving back home. And now we're here, we have our own business.
What's forcing thousands of Hawaiians to leave their home state and build a new community on the mainland.
But first, cyber criminals target schools.
The student might not find out until they're 18 and they're applying for college or applying for credit.
We uncover how stolen data from a school district could follow a student for life.
You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime online. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel at Investigate TV. You can catch stories and full episodes.
Schools across the country face an increasing threat: cyber attacks.
Experts say school districts have become popular targets because they house extensive amounts of financial and personal information. But it's not just information. An attack could cripple a district's ability to conduct classes. A 2022 Government Accountability Office report found loss of learning following a cyber attack ranged from 3 days to 3 weeks, while monetary losses for school districts ranged from $50,000 to more than $1 million. Many districts are what the government calls target-rich cyber poor, as they have their data on networks without proper protections.
Reporter Adrienne Thomas explains what school districts in Portland, Oregon are doing to keep students and staff safe.
In an age where cyber attacks dominate our news cycle, public entities with vast amounts of data like school districts are on the defense. Steve Langford, head of IT for the Beaverton School District, says hackers frequently target schools.
Sometimes it's to steal data. Sometimes it's to take over staff accounts or student accounts so that they could look for other ways to take over our networks.
But school districts strive to stay ahead of possible cyber attacks. We requested cybersecurity plans from school districts across the metro area. All have network protection such as firewalls, data encryption, multi-factor authentication for staff and students, and antivirus software. Langford says without these precautions, there could be severe consequences in a cybersecurity breach.
It could look like us not being able to transport students because the information we need is in a system that we don't have access to. We might not be able to serve lunches to students and track the lunches that we're serving. Or we might not be even able to educate students in terms of the assessments and the assignments that they have that are on computer systems.
And if personal information on students is compromised, it could have negative impacts when they become an adult.
And so it's very important for us to protect the student data because cyber criminals can harvest and capture student data on a 5-year-old student. And they could use that to create a fake identity that the student might not find out about until they're 18 and they're applying for college or applying for credit.
Langford says his department investigates any possible cyber threats and always takes steps to secure staff or student accounts that may have been compromised. In addition to staff cybersecurity training, all students participate in what Langford calls digital citizenship lessons, tailored to all grade levels.
As part of a digital citizenship course, students are made aware of methods to protect their identities. And this is important not just for their school identity, but their personal identity too.
We also spoke to Beth Grazer, Communications Director for the Hillsborough School District. They employ cybersecurity precautions similar to other metro area school districts. Grazer says her district has a cybersecurity insurance policy. In addition to acting as a safety net to compensate the district for any unforeseen losses, this policy also requires standards that improves overall cybersecurity infrastructure.
Our cybersecurity insurance that we have for our district, which we do maintain, requires that we meet and exceed their standards, which also requires us to ensure that any vendors that we do business with, and that extends to software vendors that might be providing us with learning materials for students, they have to comply with a whole suite of regulations before we can even sign an agreement to do business with them.
According to the Center for Internet Security, during the 2022-2023 school year, nearly 2/3 of school districts surveyed said they purchased a separate cybersecurity insurance policy.
From restaurants to laymakers. Up next, we travel to Sin City to see how Hawaiian businesses are thriving away from their homeland and creating the aloha spirit in Nevada. Beckoned not by the bright lights of the Strip, but the lure of financial freedom. Over the last decade, Hawaii natives have flocked to Las Vegas in droves, building a welcoming oasis in the desert.
While a lower cost of living brought them to Nevada, islanders say the efforts in Las Vegas to preserve Hawaii culture is what convinced them to stay.
Reporter Lynn Kawano takes an in-depth look at how Hawaiians are building a life on the 9th island.
From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side.
This could be any Hawaii home on any Friday night. Kanikapila with friends, green bottles, and lots of food.
Ooh, mochiko chicken.
A game of ulus to ulus provides comedic moments they can all relate to.
The best beef stew.
But this house party is in Centennial, a suburb of Las Vegas. Most of them migrated over the last decade from all over the island chain.
Don't forget to bring high cost of living.
Many of them never knew each other back home, but found connections on the 9th island, a term that's become synonymous with Las Vegas because many see it as an extension of the island chain. While Las Vegas is not the top destination for outgoing residents, it is a big draw for locals because of the community that welcomes transplants and helps them adapt to life in Las Vegas, suggesting places to buy a home, find a halal, Ono restaurants, even help them get jobs.
I'm working on a lepo'o with orchid and tea.
Kanani Delgado works at Leilani's attic after moving her family in 2017.
We just weren't making enough money to survive.
Leilani's attic is known for providing lei for celebrations in Vegas and across the country. The store also sells 50th state snacks and nostalgic collectibles, a hit with transplants.
For real, it's for real. This. Yes, yeah. It came in Friday.
Leilani's attic opened about 6 years ago. Owner Tyson Camarao saw an opportunity to serve those with island connections.
Your lifestyle changes, what you're able to do, what you're able to experience, because we do have the funds to go do that kind of stuff. Everybody wants their kids to have a better life than they did. So yeah, when we moved here, it was like, my kids are thriving here. They're doing so well.
Thriving is a word Rocky Kiyuna uses to describe his Spring Valley, Nevada business too. Grinds to the Max was a food truck in Kapolei. It was doing well, but Kiyuna and his family knew a brick-and-mortar restaurant in a pricey place like Oahu was out of reach.
We did a trip up here on vacation and then we loved it. We drove around, we came up again, then we went back home, sold everything.
Order up.
2 Scoops of Aloha in Silverado Ranch is another place popular with transplants looking for a taste of home.
So we got lau lau on the line, we got patele, we got squid luau.
Shai Walter is from Pearl City.
Tip tip.
Her husband's company transferred him 23 years ago. At first, she resisted.
I told him 5 years max, I'm moving back home. And now we're here, we have our own business. Order up, squid luau.
Most of her employees are also Hawaii natives.
I love it here.
Why?
Well, the community here, the Ninth Island community here is strong. So we have people from home. It feels like home, to be honest. And it's just cheaper.
There are more native Hawaiians living outside Hawaii, 53.4%, than in the island chain, nearly 47%, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The outward migration was especially dramatic between 2010 and 2020, with nearly 10% leaving the state. On average, Hawaii loses a dozen residents every day. 4,261 more people left the state than came in between July 2022 and July 2023. While stopping the exodus is important, the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement says they also have to embrace the shift.
You just got to look at the opportunity that it presents. Having assets all over the United States is very powerful. We have Hawaiians, Native Hawaiians, in all 50 states in big numbers. What does that mean at a federal policy-making level? What could that mean for us?
CNHA hopes the next generation will someday answer a calling to return home and be part of their native community again. But for that to happen, opportunities will have to open up and housing costs will have to come down. Resources also need to be more available for locals.
While property taxes are higher in Nevada, overall home prices are much lower. The typical price for a single-family home is about $480,000. In Hawaii, it's more than $700,000. To help working families, in June of 2024, Hawaii approved its largest tax cut in state history. The governor says by 2031, the amount of taxpayers who will pay zero state income taxes will increase from 25 to 40%.
Coming up, a father recounts the terrifying moment his daughter stopped breathing.
She's gone. I'm thinking she's gone.
How quick thinking from the first person he could find helped save the young girl's life. Imagine running errands with your children, driving with them in the back seat, then suddenly your daughter stops breathing and you have to act quickly to get her help.
Yeah, the nightmare became a reality for a St. Louis father. He says the hospital seemed too far away, so he ran into the closest building he could find. And as reporter David Emilati explains, he found a new hero.
She says, "Dad, I cannot breathe. I need my air pump."
Father Jarnell Duke says those words from his 7-year-old daughter Kennedy kicked off his worst nightmare.
We're driving to the house and she seizes up out of nowhere.
She was having an asthma attack and didn't have her inhaler. Too far from the hospital to transport herself, Jernell looked up and saw the police cruisers outside Cahokia Heights City Hall.
She's gone. I'm thinking she's gone.
He says with her limp in his arms, he headed to the front door.
I've been the mayor now for, a little over 3 years.
It just so happens a meeting brought Mayor Curtis McCall to City Hall that day.
All of a sudden, I heard someone screaming outside, saying, "Help me, please help," and I came down the hall out of my office.
Mayor McCall says he couldn't find a pulse on the girl. The retired cop says he fell back on his training.
So I laid her here, right down here, and immediately I could tell that she was not breathing. And so I started the compressions, and after doing the compressions, I did breathe in her mouth, gave her several mouth-to-mouth, holding her nose. She still was unresponsive for what I believe to be about 5 minutes.
Minutes later, he says Kennedy started responding.
There was some relief when I heard her cough, but she wasn't 100% back at that time. I continued the CPR until the policeman came.
The 7-year-old hadn't breathed for 17 minutes.
Is your daughter alive right now because of Mayor McCall?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely. I didn't even know his name. I didn't even know he was the mayor. He's my hero now. I know his name now, so he's a hero.
Mayor McCall says he isn't a hero, just a public servant, hoping this story encourages everyone to learn CPR.
Learn to save someone's life. I never used it in 20 years as a law enforcement officer. Lo and behold, would I've ever thought that as the mayor, I would need this training.
Wow, a police officer, now the mayor, and he can add saving a life to that resume.
It's a good lesson. Everyone should learn how to do CPR. You never know when you'll need it.
Yeah.
Wow, what a hero.
Well, that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm T. Chappelle.
And I'm Lee Zurich. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, the fight to protect young football players.
They're allowing corporate interests to control the narrative, and I don't think that should be their #1 priority.
We investigate what's blocking high school students from wearing an extra layer of head protection.